here we go again. We are at NetApp Insight for another session of Tech Unplugged Live. With me, Mike Tutkowski,
yep.
right?
Tutkowski,
okay, so
yeah.
it's very tough for me to pronounce this name. And senior developer for CloudStack at NetApp.
Correct, so I'm the...
Formerly SolidFire.
Exactly, so I've been working at SolidFire for about 4 years on CloudStack development, specifically in the CloudStack community. And yeah, so that's what I've been up to for 4 years here now at SolidFire.
That's nice. So give us an update about CloudStack.
Okay, so I've actually been working on a variety of different features in the last year or so. Some of them are around Xen Server, some around VMware ESXi, and most recently around KVM. So I guess we'll start with KVM. We actually have added a lot of additional features around having a one-to-one mapping between a virtual disk that your VM has, having it backed by a SolidFire volume. So you can spin up VMs within CloudStack on a variety of hypervisors. We've always had support for Xen Server, KVM, and VMware to one extent or another over the past few years. But KVM support had kind of lagged behind the other two up until recently, when we've basically implemented a feature now to spin up VMs where you can place a root disk on its own SolidFire volume, so you can have whatever performance characteristics you'd like associated with that root disk, and do so very easily through CloudStack. You could previously do that kind of thing with Xen Server and ESX, but with KVM, it was really only something we supported with what they call data disks, so additional disks that you can add onto your VMs. Now you can do it with root disks as well.
So you're saying that CloudStack is good for all the hypervisors, not just KVM, because sometimes, you know, when you talk with these end users, they are looking for just one hypervisor, one single stack. And is this an advantage for the end user to have multiple choices in regard to, the cloud management platform?
Right, so there's actually, within CloudStack, there's a bunch of different features that are sort of unique to each of the different hypervisors.
Okay.
So there are some situations where our customers will actually use maybe Xen Server with KVM, or maybe Xen Server with VMware, and they can kind of mix and match that within the same zone or data center within CloudStack. And I think that's kind of one of the big challenges I've had over the past few years, is to provide the same level of support to each of these different hypervisors, which are sort of equally utilized by our customer base. So instead of having to just be able to focus on one hypervisor, I've had to kind of spread my time across a few different ones and learn how they sort of all work and what their advantages are and their disadvantages. So I think that's a big...
so it depends on the use case.
It really depends on the use case. Many customers already come to us with a particular hypervisor in mind. Maybe they have a big investment in VMware, so that's really all they want to talk about. Other ones might have some Xen Server hosts, but they're also thinking they'd want to switch over at some point to KVM, and how can they maybe migrate from one to the other with everything still up and running in their business. So there's different use cases, is exactly what
also a different type of end users. Now, I'm sure that CloudStack is adopted by enterprises as well as service providers, for example. Do you have an idea of the percentage?
No, I'm not exactly sure what the percentage of public versus private users is, but we definitely have several customers that use it for both, for one or the other, or even in some cases both. Interroot is one of our larger customers in Europe, and I think they're currently running us in 18 data centers, and that's all with VMware in a public cloud environment. Now, I'm also working with other prospects which are looking at massive private clouds on different hypervisors, so specifically KVM, and that's where all of this recent work came with regards to KVM, was in response to some prospect needs. So it's kind of a mix between public and private, and anywhere from small installations to very large kind of infrastructure.
Yeah. And just one more question about the fact that this is an open source product, and
right.
It's managed by the Apache Foundation, right?
Exactly.
So can we find also distributions, or is just you download the software and you build on top of it?
So there's a couple ways you can do that. A lot of people actually just take the open source releases that we in the CloudStack community make available. I mean, you can always go and just grab whatever version of the code you want, but we typically release, I think we're on, let's see, version 4.9 at the moment. We're looking at validating version 4.10, and we just kind of, for us, a major release is .9, .10. It's not like 4, and then 5, then 6.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
But there are alternatives. So the way CloudStack originally was sort of, I guess, in circulation was a company called Cloud.com had built it back in 2008, or at least the initial versions of CloudStack. Then they were acquired by Citrix, which turned around and open sourced it through the Apache Software Foundation. And Citrix has always, up until recently, provided their own version of CloudStack called Cloud Platform. Now, maybe, I guess it was earlier this year, they sold that service business to a company called Accelerite in India. So there are alternatives that you can go with, companies like Accelerite that actually have their business around supporting CloudStack, even though their particular version of it is called Cloud Platform. And there's other companies, actually Cloud Ops in Montreal, they have their own public cloud that they use based on CloudStack, but they also provide services and support for customers who want to build up their own private or public clouds. And so they're a support company and service company for CloudStack. Shape Blue is a big one out here in Europe. So there's a lot of companies that have sort of their business built around supporting CloudStack.
I see, I see. So where we can find more about CloudStack?
Well, it depends if you're looking at specifically CloudStack. You can just go to cloudstack.org. Or if you're looking at how SolidFire specifically integrates into CloudStack, the biggest source of information there is to go to SolidFire's YouTube channel and look up the CloudStack playlist. There's about 35 videos that I have there. Maybe half of them are presentations that I've given at different conferences, and the other half are basically training videos showing you how to actually use CloudStack with SolidFire and KVM or VMware or Zen Server.
That's great.
So that's my recommendation there.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Dan.
Yeah, no problem, thanks a lot.
Thank you. See you later, guys.